One united people and one United States of America. And we will make America great again.
All right, Tuesday, February 12th, this is a Fox News alert. The president heading right into the heart of the immigration crisis with strong words about border security in El Paso, Texas.
And on Capitol Hill, lawmakers say they've had a deal they're confident in and the president will sign, but what's in it? We are live in Washington. Plus, a freshman Democrat is feeling the pressure from Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, her about face over comments that many called anti-Semitic. Also, Garth Brooks back in the big leagues.
The buzz surrounding the country music star's return to Major League Baseball. Fox and Friends First continues right now. Do it all the time. You know, music like takes you back sometimes. That's one of those. It takes me back.
And he plays baseball. Apparently.
We are going to have more on that later.
So much today.
Good morning. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Tuesday morning. I'm Jillian Mealy.
I'm Rob Schmidt. Thanks for getting up early with us. And let's get right to a Fox News alert. An agreement is reached in principle to avoid a second government shutdown as President Trump takes his national security message straight to the southern border.
Walls save lives. My administration has put forward a compromise. It's compassionate, and it's going to solve our problem.
And now the clock is ticking for lawmakers to hammer out the details before Friday's deadline. So what's in it, and does it match the president's vision? Griff Jenkins is live in Washington with the breaking developments. A lot to unfold here, Griff.
Yeah, there is. Good morning, Jillian and Rob. And, you know, in principle isn't terribly reassuring, but the devil is in the details. And there are plenty of areas for contention here, but it was clear that no one wants another government shutdown. So these four top negotiators found some common ground. Democrat Senator Patrick Leahy had this to say.
There's not a single one of us is going to get every single thing we want, but nobody does. But we're going to get what is best for the United States.
All right, so what's in this? $1.375 billion for 55 new miles of border barrier, all in the Rio Grande Valley. Democrats not wanting to call it a wall, but Border Patrol can use any currently deployed design, including steel slats, to build it. Then there's this. Democrats are claiming a 17% decrease in ICE detention beds. There are currently just over 49,000 ICE beds. This tentative agreement would curb that funding down to just over 40,000. But there's wiggle room because there's additional funding elsewhere where DHS authority could use to find additional beds should they need to respond in the case of a surge in apprehensions. Democrats, by the way, dropped one proposal that was drawing a lot of heat. They scuttled an effort to cap the number of detainees caught in areas away from the border, meaning the interior U.S., at 16,500. That probably moved things forward a little bit. Now the big question is whether President Trump will sign it, considering it's much less than the original $5.7 billion requested.
Progress is being made with this committee. Just so you know, we're building the wall anyway. So we probably have some good news, but who knows? Who knows?
Well, we will know when that language is released. That's probably Wednesday when this starts to move. And if it does move, that clock is ticking, so they'll have to hurry before midnight Friday, guys.
All right, Griff, thanks so much.
And what would a decrease in ICE detention beds mean for communities across the country?
Rockingham County Sheriff Sam Page from North Carolina says it could be dangerous.
It jeopardizes public safety. I look at it if we put a cap in my jail, at a local jail, and said you can't house no more than 200, then where are these persons going to be? They're going to be out in the community with the opportunity to re-victimize persons in our communities. And right here it says from the paperwork I presented,
you gave a letter to the president.
I gave the letter to the president. 72% of the persons that are being held, they're being held for mandatory detention crimes. And 90% of the persons that are being detained are charged or convicted of criminal offenses or in deportation status.
Page was one of several sheriffs to meet with the president at the White House yesterday, stressing the importance of immigration and customs enforcement in their communities.
Beto O'Rourke taking part in a dueling march and rally against President Trump in El Paso. The Democrat painting a very different picture of safety to more than 1,000 supporters in his former congressional district.
Safe, not because of walls, but in spite of walls. We stand for America, and we stand against walls.
And about a mile away, President Trump mentioned O'Rourke, who lost his U.S. Senate race to Ted Cruz.
The young man who's got very little going for himself, except he's got a great first name. He challenged us.
O'Rourke will decide if he's running for president by the end of the month.
All right, the governor of California pushes back against President Trump, pulling some National Guard troops that were ordered to the southern border. Democrat Gavin Newsom claims the deployment is not necessary.
The crisis on the border is a manufactured crisis, and we are not interested in participating in this political theater. This is pure politics. Period. Full stop.
All right, Newsom says he wanted to withdraw all of California's National Guard troops from the border, but he decided to keep some in place after he consulted with his advisors. All right, the president slamming Congresswoman Ilhan Omar for her apology after accusing a lobbying group of paying members of Congress to support Israel. The president telling reporters, quote, "I think she should be ashamed of herself. I think it was a terrible statement, and I don't think her apology was adequate." In her apology, the Minnesota Democrat says in part, quote, "My intention is never to offend my constituents or Jewish Americans as a whole. We have to always be willing to step back and think through criticism, just as I expect people to hear me when others attack me for my identity. This is why I unequivocally apologize." However, Omar is still standing by her views on lobbyists, saying in part, quote, "I reaffirm the problematic role of lobbyists in our politics, whether it be AIPAC, the NRA, or the fossil fuel industry."
Michael Cohen's Senate testimony is postponed. His lawyers blame the delay on, quote, "due to post-surgery medical needs," after Cohen recently underwent shoulder surgery. President Trump's former lawyer is also expected to testify before the House Intelligence Committee on February 28th. His 3-year prison sentence for financial crimes and lying to Congress begins next month. The former Chicago police officer who shot and killed Laquan McDonald could get a new sentence. Prosecutors believe the nearly 7-year sentence given to Jason Van Dyke last month is not enough. They're asking the Illinois Supreme Court to review the case. Van Dyke was found guilty of second-degree murder and aggravated battery for shooting the 17-year-old back in 2014.
The father of a young Kentucky mother says that her 4-year-old son does not know that she is missing. In an exclusive interview, Savannah Spurlock's Navy veteran father tells Fox News that he has been taking care of his grandson for the last 2 months. Well, Savannah was last seen leaving a Kentucky bar with 3 men in early January. Search crews have been focusing on the Kentucky River and surrounding areas, trying to find her.
Talks between union and school district officials expected today as teachers walk off the job for a second day in Denver.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! These unfair wages have to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
Teachers are demanding higher base pay as they strike for the first time in 25 years. Some students are joining the educators on the picket lines. Now look at that. Students chanting and dancing in the hallways. Schools are open despite the teacher strike.
Okay, powerful winter storm slamming the U.S. from the northwest all the way to the northeast. In Oregon, a tanker truck flips over onto a snow-covered road, spilling 2,500 gallons of diesel. What a mess. The storm prompting a ground stop at the Seattle airport overnight as well.
In Wisconsin, troopers respond to a 40-car pileup. Look at that, involving 7 semi-trucks. 1 person has life-threatening injuries. In the Northeast, snow is expected to disrupt this morning's commute for millions. Janice Dean is here, timing it out, and you've been warning us about this, Janice, and you said today is going to be a rough day for a lot of people.
It's going to be messy. It's not, well, for some it actually might be a blockbuster storm, up to 2 feet of snow, interior sections of the Northeast. But once again, New York, we're right on that freezing line. Temperatures right now at 31. So if the moisture gets in now, the likelihood is it's going to be snow. And then as the warm air moves in, we're going to get a mixture of freezing rain, sleet, and then all rain. Really, it depends on where you live. That's why people need to pay close attention to your local forecast. But I can tell you that we have an ice storm warning yet again for the Chicago area, where we could see accumulating ice. Definitely delays all day today across the upper Midwest. the Great Lakes in towards the Northeast. We have winter weather advisories. Also, the flooding threat over the Ohio River Valley, where we could see flash flooding. Here's your future radar. That's going really quickly. My apologies. I actually had one that broke it down hour by hour. Now we have nothing. So I will tell you that coming up during Fox and Friends, I'll break it down for you timeline by timeline across the Northeast. I'm sorry, I'm flustered by this.
The flakes are just starting to fall outside.
Yes.
It's just starting.
Yes,
right now.
my apologies. But I will tell you, if you live across the Northeast, just pay close attention to your local forecasters. They're doing their best to get it right today.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Janice.
Next hour, we'll have real maps.
There you go.
It's okay. You give us the information. It's 11 minutes after the hour. Dozens of America's sheriffs have a warning for Democrats. Their plan to limit the number of ICE detention beds could put thousands of criminal aliens back on the streets. The chairman of the New Mexico Sheriff's Association, Tony Mace, is here to echo that warning. Next.
And up in smoke, presidential...
And the Democrats came up with that because that means that you don't detain people that are very dangerous. It's a disgrace. That means we can't just put them back into Mexico or where they came. We have to put them back into our society. In some cases, they're stone cold criminals. We can't do that.
60 of America's sheriffs are speaking out against the plan to limit the number of ICE detention beds.
Yeah, and they're warning that as many as 8,000 criminals could get back on the streets if Democrats get their way.
Joining us live to explain is chairman of the New Mexico Sheriff's Association, Sheriff Tony Mace. Thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it. So break it down for us. How dangerous would this be?
Well, you know, you start releasing if you start releasing these individuals that are convicted of committing a crime within the United States, you start releasing them back into the general public. You don't know where they're going to go, and those crime rates, you're going to see those crime rates in your communities go up. And, you know, it's important that that we fund the ICE immigrants and the ICE efforts that they're trying to do to keep our community safe.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the Democrats' argument on this is that if your only crime is coming into the country illegally and otherwise you've been good while you've been here, you shouldn't be detained. As a sheriff near the border, what do you think of that?
Well, you know, I'm not near the border, but I do represent sheriffs that are near the border.
Sure.
That are border sheriffs right down by the Boot Hill in Santa Teresa, Antelope Wells. We see the individuals crossing the borders in hundreds. I mean, just last week there were 250 that crossed the border. They say asylum seekers. We don't have the time to properly vet those individuals and see their past, their background, whatever. They could be the criminal element coming into the United States.
So what's your biggest concern that you want people who are watching, those in the public, to be aware of?
You know, our biggest concern is, you know, these individuals, some of them may come in for a better life. Some of them, you know, they've got the term the asylum seekers. You know, you can seek asylum in your own country. You know, come over here when they want to come over here illegally. They clog the system for the individuals that want to come over and become American citizens the right way. You know, New Mexico has a high rate of crime. We have a high rate of violence. I think we're 48th or 49th in the nation. And those add to some of the problems.
Yeah. Some numbers here real quick. If you look at from 2018, this is the crime numbers for illegal immigrants in this country. 1,641 homicides, 1,294 kidnappings, 3,740 sexual assaults, 29,000, almost 30,000 assaults in general from the illegal immigrant population, which could be as high as 10, 20 million people in this country. Now, if you ask some on the left that fight for their rights, they say that if you take a swath of the population of citizens, you're going to get numbers just like this. What's your position on that?
Well, you know, I think that's going to be underreported. Simply when you get like New Mexico, a lot of us are rural law enforcement agencies. Some of those numbers aren't accounted for, so they could be higher. And in New Mexico, what's important is sheriffs, county sheriffs, we don't run our detention centers. We private out to private contractors, and they house those inmates and those individuals that are committing that crime. We have a facility right here in Cibola County.
Let's talk about a different topic here for a second. Let's talk about new gun law proposals in New Mexico and 29 sheriffs taking a stand against this. Can you explain?
So,
it's interesting that you would stand up against a law like that.
Well, you know, some of these laws that that they're enacting and the way the legislation is written, they're what we're calling fluff laws. They do nothing to protect the citizens of.
Hinting he might have a new best friend at the White House.
There is nothing better than a good old-fashioned German Shepherd. How would I look walking a dog on the White House lawn?
Carly Shimkus here with one of the most unexpected moments from the El Paso rally. And
there is nothing better than a good old-fashioned German Shepherd. I wouldn't mind having one, honestly, but I don't have any time. How would I look walking a dog on the White House lawn?
Is the president getting a new best friend? For that, we turn to Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7 Sirius XM 115.
I don't think so.
No.
Although we do love a White House dog.
I know.
So he was talking about the best way to secure the southern border, and he says that while technology is good, he believes a good old-fashioned border wall and Border Patrol dogs are even better. But these unscripted moments are always the ones that go viral.
He's great in this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Take a look at this. This Twitter user says, yes, my German Shepherd was watching President Trump. Look at that cute little face. And then another Facebook user says, Dobermans work well also. He said that when he went into office, people were telling him to get a dog because it would make him appear more likable. But he says, nah, I am who I am. Take it or leave it.
There's probably dogs around. I'm sure they have security dogs in the White House. You can probably
He's just not walking
get a quick
any of them.
pet in when you're walking by.
That's right.
Hey, legal pot all over the country. What a plan, huh?
Okay, so Senator Kamala Harris is talking about how she feels about how we should legalize marijuana on a federal level. And she also talked about her own personal use with it. Take a listen.
Let me just make the statement very clear. I believe we need to legalize marijuana.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like
And I inhale. I did inhale. Listen, I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
All right, so take a look at this tweet she posted. She says, let me be clear. It's time we legalize marijuana at the federal level. Marijuana laws are not applied or enforced in the same way for all Americans, many whose lives have been ruined by these regressive policies. We must change the system. Now, her opinion on this has greatly changed over the years. In 2010, as the district attorney in San Francisco, she opposed legalizing marijuana in California. So she's going to have to answer to her record on this. One Twitter user says, I stand corrected. You did prosecute marijuana offenses, but I am sure all those in prison because of you appreciate your tweet. Brian also saying, how many people did you put in jail for lame weed crimes? So I could see this coming up during the Democratic debates.
Yeah, she's going to have to answer a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
It's weird because politicians never flip-flop.
Yeah, they never. Their opinions never evolve, right?
Garth Brooks back on the diamond?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so Garth Brooks is spending a week with the Pittsburgh Pirates for spring training, and he's doing so for the 20th anniversary of the Garth Brooks Teammates for Kids Foundation, which has raised more than $100 million for children's charities. So Pittsburgh residents out there, all you folks in Pittsburgh are loving it. One Twitter user says, who knew Garth Brooks is now my only favorite country singer? And another Twitter user says they should get him to sing the national anthem on opening day here in the Berg. So he was a Pirates fan despite growing up in Oklahoma.
And this is his fourth stint with MLB doing
That's
this.
right.
So cool.
You're absolutely right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
It says it in my notes right here.
You read it so well.
Thank you. It is 27 minutes after the hour. An illegal immigrant is accused of killing his daughter this past Thanksgiving. And now this angel dad is standing behind the president's push for border security. He joins us with his reaction to last night's rally and the new bipartisan deal next.
And the pictures are pretty insane. A car pinned between a highway barrier and a semi-tractor trailer. How the driver miraculously survived this. Wow, stay tuned.
Mess causing massive pileups in Wisconsin. The dangerous system expected to disrupt this morning's commute for millions. New Jersey is under a state of emergency. Upstate New York could see up to 2 feet of snow.
Right at rush hour, too. All right, talks between union and school district officials expected today as teachers walk off the job for a second day in Denver, Colorado. The educators are demanding higher base pay as they strike for the first time in 25 years.
And President Trump doubles down on the need for a southern border wall in El Paso, Texas, as an agreement is reached in principle to avoid a second government shutdown. The tentative deal includes nearly $1.4 billion in funding for 55 miles of a new barrier. Lawmakers now need to hammer out details of the deal before Friday's midnight deadline.
And as we just mentioned, the president hammering home his case for a border wall during a rally in El Paso.
We want to stop criminals from coming in. Walls save lives. Walls save tremendous numbers of lives. Safety is the birthright of every American, which is why we must finish the wall.
The Border Wall Committee announcing a deal with less than half the money the president wanted.
All right, Angel father Dan Ferguson attended that rally last night, and he joins us now. Sir, thank you for coming on this morning. Before we talk about the rally, you lost your daughter to an illegal immigrant. I wanted to ask you about the potential deal that we have here for border funding. The president wanted money for 200 miles of border barriers. Looks like it might only be 50 in this deal. What do you make of that compromise?
Well, you know, I listened to the sheriff from New Mexico that came on earlier, and you asked him what are the results of, part of the losing the beds and letting them out on the streets and stuff. The results are going to be what you see on my chest. That's a pin of my daughter who was killed by an illegal alien who was arrested and was released. So that part of the deal, to me, is a no-go. As far as funding the little money that they're funding, it seems to me if they built the wall and stopped the drugs from coming in, the money they save our children, the money they save the United States would pay for that wall fully 10 times over.
Your daughter's beautiful, sir. Can you tell us, for those who don't know, what happened?
My daughter was walking across a crosswalk on Thanksgiving Day, and illegal alien who was out on a drinking binge ran through 2 red lights and hit her, killing her instantly. She was so badly damaged that the coroner wouldn't even let us identify her body. This guy ditched the car a couple of blocks away. He lied to the police saying the car was stolen. He said he was afraid because he didn't have papers. And to make matters worse, this guy was deported in 2012, came back, which makes him a felon. He was arrested for aggravated assault, which is one of the many things that Mr. Trump talked about last night. And then he was released on bond without having ICE called. And these people want to eliminate ICE. If they would have called ICE, my daughter would still be alive today.
That's just it's a terrible story to hear, sir, and we're so sorry to hear it. Democrats, Nancy Pelosi would listen to a story like that, and they would say that American citizens do the same thing. American citizens drink and drive and kill people. What's your response to that logic, and what do you plan to say to Ms. Pelosi?
I understand that American citizens do that too, but we are American citizens. We are here. We have the rights of America. These illegal aliens that come over here do not have the right to violate our laws and kill people like my daughter. If Mrs. Pelosi or Mr. Schumer's son or daughter would have been killed this way, I guarantee you that the wall would have been built 3 months ago. President Trump is right on target when he says that walls save life and that border security save life. He is right on target. And his son last night, who came out before the president, said it like it is. I have a feeling that the Democrats are more interested in the illegal aliens' votes than they are in the safety and the security of American citizens. And to me, that is just common sense. But after the rally, I watched the local news, and everything was focused on good old Beto O'Rourke instead of nothing that Donald Trump, the president, said was on the news. People just don't have common sense anymore. It's common sense to protect the American citizens first, to care about America first, then let the illegal immigrants find their way into our society.
Dan Ferguson, we are so sorry for your loss. We thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys.
All right, take care.
President Trump using last night's rally to call out new Democratic proposals that allow late-term abortion.
Millions of innocent, beautiful babies are counting on us to protect them, and we will. That is why last week I called on Congress, with your great congressman over there, to immediately pass legislation prohibiting extreme late-term abortion.
Last month, New York passed a law allowing abortions up until birth. Virginia tried to follow suit, with the governor suggesting he would support letting a baby die moments after birth.
All right, one of the women accusing Virginia's lieutenant governor of sexual assault is calling for open hearings. This is happening as several members of Justin Fairfax's staff have resigned after these allegations. An attorney for one of the accusers saying, quote, Meredith Watson asked the Virginia legislature to hold hearings regardless of what they are called and to reject a secret and delayed proceeding. Fairfax has denied these allegations and called for an FBI investigation into them. One of his accusers, Dr. Vanessa Tyson, is set to speak at a symposium on sexual assault at Stanford University tonight.
37 minutes after the hour, the average tax refund already down so far this year. So will you be getting less money? Economist Peter Morici tells us why your returns might look a little different this tax season.
You, as you said, won every congressional district in the state. Is that because you have run as a moderate?
I think they should see me as a progressive because I believe in progress.
Oh, it's primary time. She considers herself a moderate, so do many others. But Amy Klobuchar is now pushing her progressive side, trying to compete in 2020.
We are just lapping the world. You compare, it used to be like we were a second sister to China. Now China is looking up to us. We are doing so well, and other countries are not doing well.
In an exclusive interview with Fox News, the president pointing to record unemployment numbers, his comments coming after being asked about Democrats embracing socialism. The latest Democrat to enter the 2020 race for president is now working to shed her centrist reputation. Senator Amy Klobuchar dismissing far-left liberals who label her as too moderate for the White House.
I think they should see me as a progressive because I believe in progress. And I have worked toward progress my whole life.
The crowded field of Democrats running in 2020 are seen as very progressive, embracing the Green New Deal and Medicare for all. President Trump set to meet with one of his sharpest critics, New York's Democratic governor, heading to Washington today to talk to the president about changing tax laws. Andrew Cuomo has been critical of a 2017 tax overhaul, limiting federal deductions for state and local taxes. Other states like New Jersey and California have also been pushing for changes. Rob.
Jillian, thanks. The average tax refund is already down so far this year. So will you be getting less money? That's the question, probably one on a lot of people's minds right now. We're asking former chief economist for the U.S. International Trade Commission and professor at the University of Maryland, one of our favorites, Peter Morici. Thank you so much for coming on this morning, Peter. A lot of people are nervous if they are used to getting money back and they count on it.
Yeah.
What do you make of this?
I can understand.
Yeah.
Well, you see, the withholding tax tables were greatly adjusted after the tax cuts. So people got a lot of their tax cut already. And in some cases, they got a bigger adjustment in their paycheck than was warranted by the tax cuts, so now they'll get a smaller return. They should focus on the bottom line. Look at the amount of tax the 1040 says that they owed for the year. It's going to be substantially less than last year, but the reality is a lot of them got an upfront payment on it.
Yeah, I mean, if your paychecks were bigger all year long, then you shouldn't expect as much back at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But
now,
that's not going to be true for everybody, because there's going to be a lot of people out there. Somebody's got to pay for all this, right? I mean, if you're cutting taxes.
Well, no, not really. I mean, somebody does have to pay for it, but it's generally speaking, we increased the deficit to finance a very large tax cut. However, there were reforms in the system. The federal government, and that's you and I, were, if you don't live in New York, Illinois, California, and the District of Columbia, was subsidizing those places. New York has a very high personal income tax, but those folks were able to deduct that personal state tax on their federal returns. That's gone now. So they do face a tax increase. You know, if you own a $750,000 house in New York State, you were getting subsidized by poor folk in Virginia, okay? And now you're not getting. And by the way, what does New York do with the money? Have you been on the subway? I mean, if there was ever a sinkhole of waste and fraud, it's got to be the city of New York. I mean, now what you basically have is a welfare client coming hat in hand, palms out. You know, Governor Cuomo behaving like the poor, aggrieved, abused person he is. The reality is he's a thief.
Well, he's begging
was stealing
to get,
for the rest of the country.
He wants that deduction back, and all of these governors of these high-tax states want it back. But what you're saying is as everybody is blaming the president for this burden, they should have been working in these high-tax states on how to tax less all these years instead of dumping it on the federal government to cover it.
If New York City wants a bloated government, if they want a lousy subway system, if they want powerful unions and they want to pay for that stuff, okay, that's fine. But don't ask the rest of the country to subsidize it. But most folks, most middle-class people across the country, including many in New York State, got tax cuts. Kamala Harris this morning, who's running for president, said that this is nothing but a middle-class tax increase. That's all this is. Either she doesn't understand the federal withholding tax, or she's demagoguing the issue. But we shouldn't be surprised. After the Kavanaugh hearings, we learned fully that she learned nothing as a first-year law student.
So if you're rich in a blue state, you might be getting hit. But if you are truly middle class in this country, there's nothing but good news for you.
Well, it depends on where you are. I mean, it's less likely that you'll be walloped in New York State if you're middle class than if you're really well off.
That makes sense.
But by and large, middle class Americans got a tax cut. I mean, we are collecting less personal income tax now.
Yeah. Okay. Peter, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. It's something everybody's thinking about right now as we get closer to April. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, Peter. It is 46 minutes after the hour. A patriotic salute that is going viral. The story behind this photo coming up.
But first, let's check in with Todd Pyro, live in El Paso, Texas, having breakfast with friends. Todd.